Good evening, I'm Pat Sheehan. When disaster strikes a town, the fabric made up of heritage and social relationships is stretched to the breaking point. For the people of Derby, the nightmare began on Friday, December 6th.
I couldn't believe it, because the roof was laying in the side street next to it, and all that was standing was one far wall. That was it, and the rest was just rubble and gray smoke pouring out.
Brian Calvert grabbed his home video camera and captured the moment that rocked downtown shortly before 4 in the afternoon.
The whole bottom of the building was gone. You know, and then the top 2 floors were sloping down. The roof was still there, and it was sloping right down to the ground.
After the collapse, about 15 seconds later, says Calvert, flames roared up through the rubble. From Sky 3, we saw the dramatic scene downtown as rescue teams and fire units gathered from all over the valley.
The only thing I remember is the blast and me going up in the air, all the lights going out, and landing in the basement on my feet, and with debris on me, pushing it off and crawling out.
Neighbors and survivors helped rescue teams dig, their work frantic, knowing that some were trapped inside, including 30-year-old Michael Ippolito, the owner's son.
We're picking ovens off them, stoves off them, refrigerators off them. It's all laying on top of where he is. Through some miracle, I guess the construction of the building somewhat protected him.
We got halfway through and then the ceiling collapsed on us. So we came from the outside, we dug by hand, found out he was trapped under some wood in the refrigerator.
There were more people inside, hope fading quickly.
There's supposed to be 2 other people in there.
Have you had any communication?
No communication whatsoever.
Overnight, the grim reality. There were no more miracles. The family stood vigil, their business destroyed, a loved one still missing. Then the final body found. Investigators poured through the remains of the once proud downtown gathering spot, the names of the victims becoming known even without formal announcements. Friends came to look and to acknowledge what might have been an even greater disaster. The River Restaurant that same Friday night had been expecting a huge crowd as usual, and a Christmas party upstairs.
Luckily that they had it at that time, because on a Friday nights you can't get near the place.
An hour later, you would probably have had anywhere from 100 to 150 people in that building.
This was a family restaurant, and it was an extension of so many living rooms in the valley. I've entertained friends down here when we've had groups that came to visit us. I said, come on, we'll go down the river for pizza, or we'll go down for a meal. So this is more of a personal loss to so many people, and it's a personal loss to me because I've known the Ippolito family all my life.
There were 6 funerals this week for the people who died in the blast. It was a time to remember and pay respects. Mabel and Albert Paolazzi were from Stratford. They'd come to the river for an early dinner. Thomas Nedabowska was a cook at the restaurant. The 31-year-old Shelton man had been part of the river family for 15 years. Connie Pogozelski was restaurant owner Al Ippolito's sister. She ran the cash register and was, according to most people, one of the river's main reasons for popularity. Verna Shortle and her 21-year-old daughter, Dorothy, were lifetime residents of the valley, members of one of the area's most popular families. Celebrities of a sort, because of husband and father, Matthew. Matthew Shortle is called Pop by just about everybody in the valley. He's what's known as a civic booster. But Channel 3's Gerry Brooks reports to us tonight, Pop Shortle is a whole lot more.
I've played here and I've been here coaching here for the last 13 or 14 years, and Pop is a fixture here.
Pop means everything. He is Ansonia Sports.
Ansonia is Pop, and Pop is Ansonia.
His given name is Matthew, but everybody in the valley knows him as Pop. Pop Shortle, and this is his home away from home, the Jarvis football field in Ansonia. He's the natural father of 11 children, but the spiritual father of the thousands who have put on the lavender and white of the Ansonia sports teams.
He's here every Saturday or Friday night
has been for many years. You see Pop, prancing up and down the sidelines, waving on us if we get a first down, telling us we need this much for a first down.
Pop Shortle is hurting now, and the people of the Valley are hurting with him. He's lost his Burnus, his wife and best friend of 39 years. And he's lost his Dottie, one of his 4 girls and 11 children. They were taken in the blink of an eye at the River Restaurant, and they meant everything to Pop.
I don't think there's words. I don't think there's words that can describe what Burnus and Dorothy meant. Not only to the family, of course, but to everybody. They were, no matter what happened in the family, sicknesses or problems that we had over the last few years, they were there like beacons.
At 55, Bob Shortle is Pop's younger brother by 7 years. He's covered the Valley for the New Haven Register for 24 years, but Krusty does not describe this veteran reporter.
I learned more about love in the last couple of days than I thought I knew. I'm a very compassionate individual, I think. And but Burnus and Dorothy, they were love. They were as pure love as there can be.
It was a love-felt Wednesday night at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, where classmates remembered their 21-year-old friend, Dottie.
I feel that these are the words of Dottie's mother and Dottie to us. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope.
And it was a love felt at Ansonia High School, where Pop cheered the Chargers on to championships, and even included them in the funeral mass.
The Valley's close, and people are coming together to form it. They already formed a scholarship fund in the Shortle name, and all the Valley towns are all donating to it. It'll bring people a lot closer together.
To him, there were probably 3 things that were foremost in his life. His family first, religion, and athletics.
Whether it's football in the fall, basketball in the winter, or baseball in the spring, if there was a game and it was in Ansonia or in the Valley, you knew Pop Shortle would be there. And with 11 kids at home and a full-time job, you knew that took one very understanding wife.
Well, a husband such as Pop, patience plus more patience.
Pop Shortle was wheelchair-bound as a child, but he fought back to become a cheerleader, a scorekeeper, a manager, and a game official.
I asked him to referee a junior varsity basketball game for $3. That was the beginning of his career.
Pop always used to say, boy, you have a girl, she can't kick a football. Burnus always stressed education. Get your brain in order.
But Pop and Burnus were made for each other. And when it came time to bury her, too soon at the age of 59, Pop stood for the entire service.
Many people came up to Pop afterwards and said, Pop, why did you stand the whole ceremony? He said, look, if I could hold the markers at this field time after time after time, I could certainly stand for my Burnus at one point in my life.
The good Lord picks the strongest to take these jolts, because he knows that the way they're going to react to this terrible, terrible thing is going to show other people that there is hope.
The residents in the Valley are victims this time. The question is why? Why did this disaster have to happen? We know that somehow a buildup of natural gas was most likely involved, but several investigations are underway right now to find the causes. More on that part of the story from Channel 3's Marla Romash.
We have a major gas leak. Everyone in these buildings, please evacuate. Everyone in the area.
Gas was believed to be fueling the fire that devoured the River Restaurant. By the weekend, federal and state investigators made the connection clear.
The gas was involved in that we knew we had leaks after the fires was ongoing.
Along Main Street, it came as no surprise.
On Monday, we had smelled gas, and they had been digging up for gas leaks.
There's been an odor in the area.
As late as the morning of the blast, calls were made to Northeast Utilities complaining of gas odors many believed were linked to downtown sewer construction. At the same time, Northeast was conducting routine checks for gas leaks.
I believe the words that were recorded on the sheet were severe gas leak. Our personnel came out, and neither of them were able to detect any odor of gas.
Tuesday morning, they uncovered the cracked pipe along the Caroline Street main running beside the restaurant. The 85-year-old cast iron pipe had split, then separated.
There was a rock in the vicinity of the pipe, pushing down on the pipe with some intervening rocks acting as a force vector to the pipe, causing the pipe to displace. How that rock came to be there is still part of the investigation.
In their digging, workers also found an abandoned water tunnel or sluiceway connected to the restaurant's basement. And they found a new theory. The gas leaking from the Caroline Street main could have traveled through the sluiceway to the restaurant's basement, where, building pressure, it exploded. Late in the week, tests on that theory, an exploding smoke bomb, proved inconclusive. Investigators kept looking. What are you looking for?
Anything and everything. Anything that's in that street that may have had any impact or any effect on what happened here Friday night.
The evidence has been measured, photographed, videotaped. The cracked pipe is in Washington for tests. The key question, whether the explosion cracked the pipe and caused the gas leak, or whether the cracked pipe and leaking gas caused the explosion. Utility company officials don't know why the crack wasn't spotted earlier.
If the break was very old, it would be a very fair question to answer, and I'd be surprised if we didn't pick it up. If it was a very recent break, it would then be a question of what time were we here, what time did the break occur.
It could be another week before the pipeline in question is fully uncovered, and several months before the federal investigations are completed. But it won't be until those reports are in that we'll really know what caused the fatal blast. Marla Romash, Channel 3 Eyewitness News, Derby.
When you put down roots in a town like Derby, they go deep. And perhaps that's how a town like this begins to recover from the explosion at the River Restaurant. The restaurant, in one form or another, has been in town for more than 50 years. It and the family who owns it are Derby traditions. And the town itself is old, settled nearly 300 years ago. Derby is nestled on just 5 square miles at the confluence of the Housatonic and Naugatuck rivers. Its history built on the river, drawing its power from the rushing water, erecting the mills of the industrial age, attracting a labor force of immigrant men who came here to claim their piece of the American dream. They brought their families, building homes on the cobblestoned side streets. They were men of stern values and commitment, working hard to protect their own. Today, the cobblestones remain, sometimes now covered over, sometimes exposed. So too the values of the valley.
These are working people, blue-collar people. They have a mortgage, and they work in factories, and they come home every night to supper, and they go to church every Sunday, and they give their kids the things they could never afford.
Bob Pollock is the editor of the Evening Sentinel. He's watched the valley's manufacturing base dwindle away under competitive pressures from overseas and changing social mores.
One of the syndromes has been that it used to be that people were born in Derby, were educated in Derby, and came back to live after college if they went to college, or went right to factory work if they didn't, and stayed in the Derby area. This is still true in some families, but a growing number of people are leaving. The mills have not gone out of business, except for a few of them. The big ones are still here, but a lot of jobs have been lost. The layoffs over the years have been prodigious, and so a lot of these people have had to go out of the valley to work. So I think it's fair to say that while there are many mill workers still working in this valley who live in Derby and Ansonia and Shelton and Seymour and Oxford, the truth is a lot of valley people are now working away. And to say now that all valley people are mill workers working in the valley is simply no longer true. That's been a big change. Big change.
And there's been crisis as well, like the sponge rubber products fire back in 1975, when more than 2,000 valley people lost their jobs in the nation's largest case of commercial arson. Just a few years back, the Hull Dye fire, another loss of jobs in this valley with the highest unemployment in the state. And of course, the floods. No one in the valley forgets that devastation.
We had water 8 feet deep going through the center of this town. We had people all over the place that were homeless. We had all types of rescues that were unbelievable, and it was all together. Everybody pitches in and got in there and cleaned it up. It was a tremendous job. We've had a lot of ag, but we always survive in the valley. We're very, the people in the valley are tough, and they stick together.
Eddie Cotter's a Derby native who's been reporting for the local paper since the day he graduated from Derby High School, 47 years ago. He speaks of the churches in the valley and the strength of the family, and the ethnic population that's intermarried now, drawing from each other's culture.
You know everybody in the area.
What do you mean?
You know who they are. With this tragedy that happened, we knew those people, the people that were killed in that restaurant. We knew them personally. We dealt with them almost on a daily basis some way in our life. We either saw them on the street, or we were in the restaurant, or in some social activity. Somewhere in our life, we knew those people.
And the common ground is football. Across the valley, it symbolizes the strength of the community, parents dreaming their dreams through their children on the field.
We live and die by the game. It's often said when the baby is born, if it's a boy, they hand him a football. If it's a girl, the girl gets the cheerleaders outfit.
The valley is changing. Factories being closed, being sold. Children no longer settling here, but moving away. The average age here in the valley is nearly the highest in the state. There's little room for any new growth. So the town looks inward. And when a downtown landmark, like the River Restaurant, goes, so does a piece of this town's soul. For the people of Derby, the healing process has already begun. It involves conversation, talking with friends, sharing feelings with relatives and neighbors. In just a moment, we'll hear from the people of Derby. Naugatuck Valley. It is, of course, the talk of the town here in Derby. They speak of nothing else. And yet, that is a part of the healing process, as Channel 3's Gayle King reports.
The first few mornings I've woken up, it's the first thing on your mind. It's the last thing on your mind when you go to bed. Each day has gotten a little better now, but it's something I'll never forget.
Ron Sill, like most people in Derby, will never forget December 6, 1985. But unlike most people, he was an eyewitness. Sill was walking in front of the River Restaurant when the explosion occurred.
All of a sudden, boom, and I felt almost a push in my back. I fell to the ground right next to the sidewalk there, and I turned around and I saw the bottom of the building like push out from all sides, and I saw something fly onto Main Street, and then everything, the whole top of the building just came down where the building had left the bottom.
Sill, who was a volunteer firefighter in the town, ended up working for the next 10 hours. He was one of the first people to see Al Ippolito when he came out of what used to be the River Restaurant.
It was all powder and blood around his lips, and he was going just crazy, you know, where's my son, where's my son, help me, everybody help me. And everybody started to come from everywhere, and they heard Mike yelling, get me out, get me the hell out of here. And Al came running around at that time, and they said, Al, we found him, Mike's here, we'll get him out, we'll get him out. And Al just came over, just starting to pull the bricks apart and saying, Mike, Mike, and Mike yelled, get me out, and he says, I'll get you out, Mike, we'll get you out.
This is probably the worst and most devastating thing that I believe has ever happened in our community.
Traffic on Main Street is clogged with motorists now, curious to see where it happened. They drive by in a steady stream all day long.
I don't think you ever will recover. I think there'll always be a stigma in the back of people's minds of the tragedy that happened here.
For most people in this town of 13,000, the loss is painfully personal. The River Restaurant, some say, was like an extension of their living rooms, a place to see and entertain your friends.
The loss of the River Restaurant and Connie and Pop's family, it's a familial loss. It's not something you read about. It's not a person you're not involved with. I mean, these are people that I've known all my life.
It has left the community with a lot of hurt and pain in a time when we should be rejoicing with the coming of Christmas.
Julie Sabetta and Joan Sappho describe the tragedy as numbing. They work at a social agency that was scheduled to have a Christmas party at the restaurant that night. More than 100 people were expected to attend.
We could have been there, and it could have been us, all of those people, rather than the few that it was. And it's so horrible that it was even those few.
No one was really in the mood for a Christmas party, so the agency decided to cancel any plans for a Christmas party. We bought door prizes to distribute that evening, and we decided to give those to the local nursing homes.
I find myself, when I have a free moment, that I am visualizing that
terrible tragedy.
Rancher Lizzie owns Vanetti Sweet Shop, located just down the street from the River Restaurant. Like most residents in Derby, the 6 people who died in the restaurant 8 days ago were her friends. It has left a scar.
The next day, I'm in a daze, and before I knew it, the tears were rolling down my cheeks.
The fire and explosion at the River Restaurant caused more than a personal loss for other business people on Main Street. They're hurting financially, too. Sales are way down because people are still afraid to come into this area. But most merchants will tell you that lack of business is not a concern right now, because a week after the tragedy, they are still grieving.
We haven't even begun to calculate the financial loss. We're just looking at, gee, we lost friends and family members, because we all feel that way.
Mayor DeBarberi says the city is waiting for word from Al Ippolito. And if he wants to rebuild, DeBarberi says Derby will do what it can to help. Help is what Wayne Collar is looking for, too. He has come to this social agency for food. He was a kitchen worker at the River Restaurant and was on his way to work when he heard about the explosion.
People just tell me, Wayne, things will work out. The days will be getting better. Where? When? How?
1955, the floods devastated us. We were never supposed to recover from the 55 floods. And the storms in the 70s were supposed to destroy us, and we were never supposed to recover. But we keep bouncing back because we know very little except integrity and a work ethic. We're all working people, and the only ethic we truly understand is to work. Life has to go on.
Gayle King, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
We'll be back with some final thoughts in just a moment. Here, though, there's been a death in the family, and the Christmas celebration is going to be muted, quite different. Perhaps, though, the people of Derby will be reaching to the true spirit of the Christmas season, setting aside the new toys and toasters, a last-minute rush for wrapping and ribbons, and instead concentrating on the meaning of the season, a season of hope. The people of Derby coming together, caring and sharing, and having the will, the strength to move on. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Pat Sheehan. Good night.
Ready to rev up with Burt Reynolds as he stars as a stock car racer in Stoker Race. Tonight at 9. Stay tuned now for Airwolf, next on Channel 3.